realize that with this happening, to what you call it, if you're going to fire Stephanie White, you are, by doing that, you're firing the entire front office. I don't think people understand the Fevers front office is is basically they're they're all somewhat involved, somewhat linked to the 2012 championship, and is the one championship this organization has won.
New footage of a sideline exchange between Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White has added another Bullseye point to what is becoming an undeniable pattern. During a timeout, White is seen confronting Clark directly, and Clark, rather than absorbing the criticism passively, responds with visible pushback before being substituted out in favor of Raven Johnson. The context matters. The argument appears to center on defense, and the recurring frustration from Clark's side seems rooted in a belief that she is being singled out for defensive breakdowns that are not exclusively, or even primarily, her fault. There were possessions in the game where other players made defensive errors that went unremarked, while Clark's positioning drew immediate public correction.
2012 championship, and is the one championship this organization has won. So you are basically saying we are choosing Caitlin Clark over every bit of history the organization has had, and doing that in 2024 makes sense. But doing that when you've got your when you've already now signed your, well, sorry, you've already,
that selective accountability, if consistently applied, would reasonably produce friction in any competitive player. That said, the optics of the exchange are not straightforward. Whatever the underlying justice of the situation, a player visibly arguing back at a coach during a game is never a clean look, and most analysts are acknowledging both sides of that reality. Clark's willingness to push back reflects the frustration of someone who feels she is being scapegoated, but it also reflects a working relationship that has deteriorated to a point where professional composure is becoming harder to maintain under pressure.
sorry, you've already sold your tickets. You've already sold all of your tickets. You've already gained from the Caitlin Clark mania more than most people. You've already gained from the mania. Everything that is there to be done has happened. And Caitlin Clark, during a timeout, as you can see here, Caitlin Clark, Stephanie West stream at Caitlin, and Caitlin is just like, nah. And that's the one thing, look.
This is not an isolated incident. Similar exchanges have surfaced multiple times across recent games, nearly always following a defensive breakdown, and nearly always with Clark as the focal point of White's visible frustration. The cumulative weight of those moments is what makes the latest clip significant. It is no longer possible to frame these as one-off flare-ups in competitive games. Something structural is happening between the two makes the organizational dimension more complicated.
Caitlin is just like, nah. And that's the one thing, look, I don't love this from Caitlin, by the way. I don't love this, and it's one of these things where, I think a lot of coaches are in, would be in a similar boat when it comes to to the way Steph White is, a lot of players would be on a similar boat where it's when a coach is giving out to you for what you believe is no reason, as a player, you just sometimes have to take it. And
Stephanie White is not simply a hired coach who can be removed without broader consequences. She is deeply embedded in the franchise's identity, part of the staff during Indiana's only championship, and later the head coach who took the team back to the finals. The front office's historical connection to that era runs through the same people, making any decision to prioritize Clark over White, effectively a decision to break from the organization's own institutional legacy. The comparison being drawn in some circles is to high-profile player-coach conflicts in NBA history. Situations where a player of transformational ability came into irreconcilable conflict with a coach who represented something larger than just a tactical system. Those situations rarely resolve quietly, and they rarely resolve in a way that leaves both parties in place.
You just sometimes have to take it. And Caitlin Clark clearly is not that type of player. And look, I'm going to be honest. That is, this is not a positive thing about Caitlin Clark that she's snapping back at her coach. Like, you don't want to see that. You absolutely don't want to see that. It is one of these things where you've got, like, as a player, Caitlin has got to be.
The prevailing read for now is that Stephanie White has likely lost Caitlin Clark. Not the rest of the locker room necessarily, but Clark specifically. Whether that loss is something the franchise chooses to manage or something it allows to force a resolution remains the open question. Given Clark's contract situation, the urgency of that decision is not abstract. A sideline video clip has ignited a fresh round of debate about the state of things inside the Indiana Fever organization.
Caitlin has got to be, Caitlin's got to be better. Caitlin's got to do better than that. And when it comes to Steph White, there has been a lot of situations we have seen in these arguments where I don't like this for a player when it's like the player, you can be in the right, but you're still in the wrong. And
the footage, which spread rapidly across social media, captures what appears to be a tense verbal confrontation between head coach Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark. Functional relationship between the two. The timing is hard to ignore. Just days before the clip surfaced, White had given a radio interview describing her rapport with Clark in glowing terms. Sideline footage from around the same period showed the two appearing relaxed and cordial.
You can be in the right, but you're still in the wrong. And obviously, this is an argument about defense. And Caitlin Clark is basically just... Because she keeps... I mean this when I say this. You've seen it on the sideline. Caitlin Clark is freaked that she's getting singled out on defense. Like, there was a defensive possession where Ty Harris fucked up. And she got singled out. Like, you can tell. You can tell when a person's just pissed off in situations. And you can tell that Caitlin Clark is not happy with the fact that Stephanie White is regular.
Those images were already being questioned by skeptics who suspected the public presentation was managed. The new video has given those suspicions considerably more weight. In the clip, White appears to confront Clark directly, gesturing and speaking with visible intensity. Clark's response is telling. Hands raised, head shaking, the posture of someone absorbing criticism they find either unfair or bewildering.
Clark is not happy with the fact that Stephanie White regularly singles her out on defense. Like, it's not like an uncommon occurrence that Stephanie White decides that the ball, something's gone wrong, therefore it's Caitlin Clark's fault, even when Caitlin Clark's been put in a bad position. That being said, you shouldn't be snapping your coach during the game. Like, especially because, again, you can see this right here. Caitlin Clark, she's screaming at Caitlin Clark to start this off. And it's like, yeah, some players can take it. Yeah, coaches are going to be tough.
White then glances sideways, seemingly registering that the moment may be on camera, before composing herself and calling for Johnson to substitute in the sequence. Confrontation, player reaction, coach recalibration upon noticing the cameras. is being read as an unguarded window into a dynamic that has otherwise been kept out of public view. What makes the exchange particularly difficult to defend, regardless of what was actually said, is the surrounding context. Clark had been pulled from the game in the opening minutes of the first quarter.
The exclusive. Stephanie White caught on camera yelling at Caitlin Clark. Her and Caitlin having another damn exchange. Let's blow it up. Let's listen.
Portland immediately went on a 13-2 scoring run. Never found its footing after that, directing criticism at Clark in the aftermath of a collapse that unfolded while she was sitting on the bench is a sequence that raises obvious questions about where accountability is being directed within the program. The numbers from that night reinforce the point.
So let's watch this, right? So let's watch it again. Stephanie White is laying it on Caitlin. Like this is all Caitlin's fault when you took her out in the first damn quarter that went on a 13-2 run. How the hell remotely is this Caitlin Clark fault? Look at this. And look, Caitlin throws her hand.
Clark played 22 minutes and scored 6 points. Johnson, brought in as her replacement, played 10 minutes and scored 3. The substitutions did not produce results. Yet Clark is the one who appears to have been on the receiving end of a dressing down. This is not the first visible friction between the two.
And look, Caitlin throws her hands up, and Caitlin's like, okay, look. Caitlin threw her hands up and said, okay, and shook her head. Is she saying fuck? Is she cursing? Now, Stephanie White quickly looks around, right? So if you watch her body language, right? Look. So Stephanie White trying to calm down like, oh, snaps, camera.
A pattern has emerged. Substitutions that disrupt momentum, schemes that limit Clark's involvement, and now multiple documented moments of visible tension on the bench. Comparable situations at other franchises draw a useful contrast. Teams built around elite guards like Sabrina Ionescu or Paige Bueckers do not expose those players to the same kind of public sideline criticism, nor do they repeatedly pull them during critical game stretches without apparent cause.
Stephanie White trying to calm down like, oh, snaps, cameras could be out. Somebody's going to catch this. Look at this. She chewing on gum. Oh, my God. This is so fucking bad, guys. I mean, they can't even cover this up. There clearly is locker room issue. Coach Anderson captured this. Stephanie White yells at Caitlin Clark, then tells her to get up for Raven Johnson, a.k.a. benching her. This coach left CC.
The results exist. The substitution patterns exist. Each element individually might be explained away. Taken together, they describe an environment where the franchise's most important player is being managed in ways that are visibly counterproductive, and where the friction has become impossible to conceal. How much longer the organization absorbs that reality without structural change is the central tension now hanging over the rest of the season.
Left CC on the island 2 games in a row due to Liberty. Liberty do that to Sabrina. Dallas do that to Paige. No. Stephanie White yelling at Caitlin Clark about defense like she's the problem. CC says, Bays, I'm going straight up. What else you want me to do? Stephanie White said, F out of my face. I'm putting Raven Johnson in. Wow. I knew it looked like she cursed. Let's look. Look, y'all. We got to watch this again. I'm going live about this tomorrow. we're definitely going live about this tomorrow. Did she say get the fuck? Bro, she said it. And she threw her clipboard. Hold on, guys. Hold on. Here you go. And so she calls for a Raven. Hold on. I'm trying to see. Wow, bro. Tell me I'm tripping. Tell me it looked like she told Caitlin Clark to get the F out of her face, bro. Wow. Shout out, bro. Wow. Shout out to Coach Anderson for this one. Oh my goodness. Somebody said this is the only time Stephanie White actually emoted during the same game because she sure didn't when we were getting curious calls. Whoa, I'm speechless, bro. She's been taking her incompetent out on Caitlin Clark. Yes, bro. Yes. What is this right here? Whatever Stephanie White said, she was wrong. This is how we know that for sure. So what's the stat line? 22.